Good afternoon and welcome to Galactic Soul Healing. Okay, today I've been doing a little bit of research. There seems to be a bit of a movement at the moment about around masculine and feminine. So I've researched some divine masculine qualities and some divine feminine qualities. Now, when looking at these two lists, some of these qualities on this side, for instance, could well be over here, and some here could well be over here, right? Because when we're talking about the divine, in other words, the optimal qualities, okay, there are obviously some in common here. So for the divine masculine, we have like assertive. We have reasoning, which is logical thinking, and the divine masculine is protective. So that's you know, looking after other people in a protective way. Courageous, active, strong, focused, respectful, spiritual, okay, purposeful, and compassionate. Okay, I could elaborate on all of these, but we won't, because we're going to do a spread. Okay, and some of these qualities we'll be elaborating on throughout the spread, I'm guessing. Okay, because we'll do that in a minute. So the divine feminine, for the divine feminine, we have nurturing, understanding, creative, healing, intuitive, gentle, communicative, wise, spiritual, present, as in the moment, okay, and compassionate. Now, there may be a bit of disagreements on some of these things. For instance, okay, so we have the divine feminine is wise, but the divine masculine is most likely wise as well, okay. And also, for instance, over here, for instance, a divine feminine, the divine masculine is strong, but there's no reason why, of course, the divine feminine would actually be quite strong too. So yeah, I just thought I'd put those up there just to kind of get you kind of in that realm of just into those masculine and feminine type energies. Now, you may feel like taking some things off of these lists, and you might feel like adding some other things. Okay, that's fine. I'm a big believer in people doing their own brainstorming and coming up with their own lists, okay, because what we create is meaningful for ourselves, right? Overall, from what I can kind of gather, the divine masculine is more about, you know, it's that projective energy. So it's about projecting out what needs to be projected or shared for the good of all, for the highest good of all, okay. The divine feminine is more about like an incubation or an inward kind of developmental growth, okay, which is really the material that's kind of yeah, becomes developed and refined over time, okay, which then ultimately does need its own divine masculine aspect to then be shared with the world, okay, in the form of a purposeful action, right, active. Yeah, and lots of these qualities yeah, will come out in the spread, okay. Now I'm using two decks today. Now you might think, so I'll just show you what we're going to be doing. So we have Gods and Titans, which is a predominantly masculine type images, okay, and then we have the Keepers of the Light, which has pretty much a 50% split of feminine images and masculine images, okay. Now the reason that I'm kind of got the masculine deck here, okay, is because it's not just for men, right? It's about women's internal masculine aspect. Okay, because men and women have a masculine aspect, and they also have a feminine aspect, and that particular philosophy or idea links in with Jungian theories of the psychological theory, which states that within our subconscious even we have an anima and an animus. Okay, so the anima is the feminine principle, and the animus is the masculine principle. Okay, and ideally when we hit around midlife, okay, if we've been predominantly activating ourselves previously from a masculine aspect, which could be a man or a woman, could be acting from that aspect predominantly, what happens usually in midlife is that changes and things happen to sort of come up, and they then need to start integrating or activating, first of all, becoming even aware of the feminine aspect, then activating it and nurturing it and supporting it so that it can integrate with the masculine. Okay, and of course vice versa. People are predominantly feminine around the midlife area kind of phase, they would then be, usually things start to happen and they need to kind of start to integrate the masculine aspect. Now, sometimes it's actually a bit of a shock, and I would kind of like to put in there that the midlife crisis, I'm not quite sure about the quarter life crisis. It could be similar issues with the quarter life, although there could be slightly different issues happening with a quarter life crisis. Midlife crisis, initially, when you say, if you're predominantly been operating from a masculine perspective, to actually kind of realize that is a bit of a shock, and then to even acknowledge that there's a feminine aspect, there can be a little bit of a war going on between your own feminine aspects and your own masculine aspect. Okay, either way. So if you've been predominantly feminine, you can sort of you can sort of be in a bit of a war with the masculine. Okay, or if you're masculine predominantly, you can be a bit of a war with your own feminine. The interesting thing is that ultimately, for those people that kind of realise that they need to, if they're kind of inclined to go through some personal growth or personal development, or they want to move themselves out of, say, emotional and mental ruts that they've been in, ruts in terms of very fixed patterns of behaviours, fixed patterns of thinking and feeling, okay, they kind of within themselves kind of know that it's sort of to do with the masculine and the feminine, right, that they both need to come into more balance. Okay, so what we're going to do with the cards is that I'll just explain this spread to you here. So sort of between like now and December, I've kind of been guided to do a spread. Now these squares here represent the 4 stacks. Okay, so we're going to be looking at feminine and masculine energies, and it's a collective spread. So it's going to be to do with collectively the kinds of ways that feminine and masculine aspects are going to be interacting and things like that. Okay, and you know, we're going to be doing it, looking at from how they're interacting in the mental realm. So in terms of the thoughts. Okay, then how they're interacting in the physical realm in terms of body, okay, the physical body, then in terms of the emotional realm, so that's obviously feelings. So that's an example of that would be you know, so say if the masculine is kind of used to feeling a particular way or having to work into feelings of being a particular way. If the feminine, the integration of the feminine may be making itself known in ways that are kind of encouraging the masculine to look more at the true in-depth feelings that are going on, or even being able to talk about feelings and stuff like that. And you know, with the spiritual, that could be, for instance, you know, like a feminine way, a spiritual way that might be a little bit reclusive. Okay, the masculine coming forth within that soul being, okay, could actually be urging it to, encouraging it to kind of focus in on self for the purpose of sharing it out. I have a feeling there's a little bit of these movements going on where I think generally men are kind of sensing that they're actually being required now to go in to kind of just recalibrate, and it's almost like women are kind of being encouraged to kind of step out of themselves now. Not step out of yourself, are kind of being encouraged to actually speak up a bit more about things that they know, okay, or perhaps even about intuition and things like that. There's certain, and that's the masculine impacting on the feminine, and the other way is that the feminine impacting on the masculine is really encouraging that masculine to go in and really discover the inner gifts and the inner riches of within the being, within themselves. Okay, both things are really beautiful, and of course it makes sense logically, doesn't it, that when they're working together in harmony, it's amazing. Okay, and people that have sensed this within themselves, they know that that is transformative. Okay, it is accompanied by a lot of psychological work, time, effort, persistence and consistency, but also self-care and faith, okay, and persistence. Okay, now what I'm going to do is so obviously on your screen, the card at the back, at the top of your screen, is going to be the mental one. Okay, and then we'll just work around from there. I'll show you what we're going to do down here now. So basically I'm going to and obviously if you did want to re-look at those divine masculine and divine feminine qualities, again, those lists, you could obviously just flick back and take a screenshot or whatever you like to do. Yeah, and so these are the Keepers of the Light cards by Kyle Gray. Okay, and we have Gods and Titans by Stacey DeMarco. Now let's just give these a bit of a shuffle, because I did shuffle them quite a lot. There's about 45 cards in this deck. Okay, Gods and Titans a bit less, 36 cards, but we're, like I said, we're just going to be pulling out 4 of each. So in actual fact we're going to do Gods and Titans first, and then we'll put these on top. But we need to just finish this, do a quick shuffle, which I'm going to finish up now. I did shuffle them quite a bit beforehand, and I've shuffled these quite well as also. So we'll just say a little quick prayer and just ask that you know, any spirit guides that would like to come in and assist us now, both with the reading of this, the imparting of this information, and also with the receiving of the information, and also the images, because you know, being a transpersonal therapist, I'm aware of the direct connection between image and subconscious, because our subconscious, as you know, is that thing that's responsible for us having the dreams in the night, and generally that speaks to us through images. Okay, so basically if you're looking at any image, okay, it can speak to your subconscious. And the other thing too is that tapping into the subconscious and improving the connections between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind really helps you to make inroads in terms of any personal changes that you'd like to make, with regard to yourself. Okay, because really, if you just in conscious mind only, and you feel like you're going to make deep changes that way, okay, you can consciously make efforts to change, and and that may work for a while, but more often than not we tend to default back to our subconscious programming, which is that programming that's been formed in us when we were children. Okay, and it's not just our parents, okay, that help to form our conditioning and our ways of thinking and feeling. It's also society and culture in general. Okay, so if you want to kind of get back to your true authentic self, and you want to kind of be released from a lot of things that you feel are affecting you in perhaps unhelpful ways, okay, looking at doing some subconscious work can be really helpful for that. Now let's just cut the deck 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Now, did I say a prayer? Oh. We just like to really ask any spirit guides, ascended masters, high frequency light beings, archangels, and people that would really like to assist us with this, so that we can increase our understanding of ourselves and work towards the highest good of all, so that we can really kind of step into our more balanced way of being. Okay, that's ultimately more fulfilling as well, and more peaceful, harmonious and balanced, which improves everything, not only our ideas about ourselves, but also improves the quality of our relationships. Okay, now let's put these down. So we've got mental, physical, emotional and spiritual. Okay, and we're going to see how these stacks interact too, because we've got the mental and emotional kind of opposite here, and then we have the spiritual and the physical. These are kind of opposite. So if you'd like to take notes, you might just want to draw out the spread quickly, and there it is again, if you can read that. Not quite sure if that's clear enough. Spiritual, physical, mental, emotional. Okay. Right, so we'll just cut these. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and we shuffled the others, so let's just quickly shuffle these. Okay, so we went mental, physical, emotional and spiritual. So we're going to look at the mental realm. So when we're looking at these realms, okay, each realm pertains to, an action. So if we're mental, we're thinking, in our thinking realm. It also pertains to a solar plexus chakra, because the solar plexus chakra is connected directly to the the mental body layer of the aura. And if we're talking about the physical, that physical realm, okay, which is to do with our actions, our physical actions, okay, that particular realm for us energetically is mostly governed by the base or the root chakra at the base of our spine, okay, and that is connected directly to the etheric layer. That's the chakra. It's connected directly to the etheric layer of our aura, okay, and the emotional body, Okay, the emotional actions, obviously our feelings, okay, that we have. That is connected to the emotional layer of the body, which I believe is also the astral emotional layer. It's kind of the astral, which is connected from the heart chakra. Okay. Now, the other thing that taps into the emotional body can actually be the sacral chakra, which is that one just below the belly button. Okay. That is also linked into actually that is linked into the emotional layer of the aura, and the heart chakra is connected into the astral layer, right? But as we know, the heart is kind of where there's a lot of feeling happening as well. But there's two layers with feeling. There's this kind of feeling here, and then there's the creativity, emotion, deep emotional stuff in the sacral area. Then the spiritual, of course, is I would say the crown chakra, but also the brow chakra is sort of responsible for our spiritual. And you could also almost go so far as to say that the throat chakra is kind of connected into that a little bit as well, because it's to do with speaking our truth, okay, which is generally, that's a spiritual thing. But primarily these two chakras here, and you know, they're connected into the spiritual layer of the aura. Okay, that's just to give you an energetic perspective. So when we're looking at these in terms of masculine and feminine, we're going to start with the mental one. So this is this sort of to do with the energies. Okay, let's just flip the cards over anyway and just see what we've got here. So we have Ra, and that says power. Okay, and wow, divine holy amethyst, divine alchemy. They are two really powerful cards, aren't they? This is definitely a masculine image, and this is definitely a feminine image. So chills. So in terms of masculine and feminine, what those energies are doing, you can probably guess it. Like, you might just want to jot down a few things now of what your interpretation of that is. Let me just read underneath here. Okay, move beyond current challenges, focus on what you desire. So that image there is just beautiful. See the heart in there, the heart symbol. And holy amethyst, that is a direct reference to a gemstone, amethyst, which is this chakra here, really good for this chakra. Even though we're not on the spiritual one, it's talking about the thoughts. Okay, and it's actually also to do with intuition. So really, it's kind of about, I think what that's saying is that the divine feminine in men and women will is currently, and probably within the next few months between now and Christmas, it will be developing by way of its it will be moving, it will be able, the thoughts, okay, the mental activity that's been going on and the mental challenges that we've had, okay, men and women, right, are going to be, can be overcome if we utilize our own divine feminine aspect and really focus on what it is that we desire. It might be a particular feeling state that we desire to be in. Okay, and it's literally saying there's a divine alchemy. So that is the transformation. So it's saying that the activating your divine feminine will really help you to transform your thoughts, your thought patterns, into new thought patterns that you desire. Okay, the word focus is here as well. Okay, and it's saying focus on what you desire. That's just beautiful. That angelic, see, she's actually got wings up the sides there. That is actually really angelic, beautiful high frequency, and that purple is a very transformative colour. But can you see that the very strong, literally the brow chakra is here, which is literally, you know, it's very close to our mind, isn't it? So it's kind of almost also kind of alluding to the fact that tapping into intuition, utilizing, perhaps researching all the different types of intuition, and maybe playing around with some things and doing different types of meditations, you know, looking at clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, doing meditations, working with crystals, okay? Even that thing about being able to pick up energies from objects like crystals, okay? Really developing that, I'm not quite sure what that's called, kinesthetic sense connection there, all right? But also sensing spirit, praying to source, tapping into your higher frequency, your capacity to access higher frequency thoughts. And that's what intuition can help you with, especially if you start developing or working on developing your intuition. Okay, that is really beautiful. That is really transformative for us. And look at that, it's also saying use your heart, use your intuitive heart as well. Okay, that's really nice. And I'm actually going to talk about this here, the power. I think this is actually also saying that this is almost full power of divine masculine and divine feminine, isn't it? Because Ra is extremely powerful. Okay, that's power in all respects. So it's really saying here that this synergy between feminine and masculine aspects is just going to be unbelievably powerfully transforming. If we can get our thoughts into accepting the opposite, like whatever one we feel that we're in. So if you're a woman even and you feel you've been quite masculine, if you can really work hard at bringing in the feminine, it will be really powerful and transformative for you. And even if you're a guy who's been predominantly acting from a feminine perspective previously, okay, if you can use strategies in that to kind of really activate your masculine aspect, it's going to be powerfully transformative. Really powerful. Which is kind of what we were saying at the start, wasn't it, about all of these divine aspects. You can imagine if they're working together within one soul, one person, one being, man or woman, that it's going to transform you, okay? It's awesome. Look at that. It's just amazing. That is the beautiful inward divine feminine, right? Basically saying, you know, work on divine alchemy and use the powers of your thoughts and your intuition and your spirit connection as well. The divine feminine, working with the, you know, the power and the purposeful, like the driving of the masculine, that will really help this to come forward and really assist you to actually do this, whether you're a man or a woman. Okay, because the divine masculine, if we just look up here, you know, we've already identified the divine masculine, which was on this far side. You know, that's the active, focused, courageous and assertive aspect of a soul. It's very purposeful and also compassionate, spiritual. really, the sky's the limit for us, honestly. And you know what the obstacles are to this is those distorted and dysfunctional masculine and feminine aspects that many of us have. Because basically for each of these lists, okay, I'll just pop those down. We're actually talking about the distortion now. For each one of these lists, there can be a corresponding distortion, and you can probably work that out for yourself. For instance, strength, so strong, being strong over here. Obviously, if people exhibit their strength and use that to overpower people at the expense of others, at the expense of things, then it's not really divine anymore, is it? And so that's a dysfunction. For instance, on the feminine side here, like a gentle, okay, that's a beautiful divine quality. But obviously, if it's gentle, okay, to the point of basically all the time subjecting one's own will to the will of another, in other words, complete submissiveness and no assertion, you know, like AKA being a doormat in gentle, because there's no fight back in gentle, right? It's just being really gentle, which is a beautiful quality to have. Okay, if there's just this allowance of, you know, say abuse to keep occurring and things like that, and a person's trying to be gentle and forgiving all the time, it doesn't make that person feel divine, does it? The person that's being gentle is not feeling divine because they're being hammered and hammered and hammered. Okay. So I guess there, gentle can actually become, it's actually a weakness on that spectrum. Okay, if we're talking about divine gentle, that's matched with all of these other things. Okay, and you probably would actually have to put assertion and strength in there on this feminine side, wouldn't you, to make that complete. But certainly, I mean, if someone is healing or intuitive or communicative, even if they have a gentle, they would actually be able to find ways to move away from that situation, or at least alleviate it for themselves in some way. And, you know, we'll pick another one over here too. So for instance, so reasoning is an interesting one. That's actually to do with logical thinking, okay, or intellectualization is reasoning. Okay, now there is a thing called intellectual or executive syndrome, okay, where people are extremely reasoning, they're extremely logical, okay, but they just go completely into the logical mind and they have no emotional empathy for anyone. No consideration. So that's then becomes dysfunctional, doesn't it? Because they are actually incapable of being, you know, compassionate or respectful. There are many different ones you could pick on and make, you know, extremes or dysfunctional versions of. Okay, obviously if all of these are activating and they're in balance, then that's a divine picture, isn't it? Okay, now let's look at the physical here, which is this one. Okay, so basically I'm just saying that for every divine quality on the spectrum of the qualities of what that means, okay, there can be a distortion or dysfunction, and you can probably identify that for yourself. Because anyway, like for individuals or for cultures or for anything, collectives or individuals. Okay, we have the physical now. Pertaining to the physical, we have Helios, which is cycles. Okay, Helios was a Greek god figure, a god of the sun, I think, and Archangel Michael, trusting heaven. And it says, "You are safe, angels stand close, surrender your concerns and allow a miracle to occur." Okay, Archangel Michael is actually a very protective archangel. Okay, and it's interesting that we have a very strong divine masculine here, because it's doubled up, hasn't it? And we have the winged thing happening again. Archangel Michael has wings, and Helios is flying through there, flying on a horse with wings. So in terms of physical, okay, it's almost like the divine masculine is being asked to take courage. It's being asked to trust that everything is going to be okay. And I think it might even be speaking to men in general. Because it's saying that to men, and even to women that are having trouble activating their divine masculine, that you are safe. Even if you feel like what you're wanting to do, it can't be made manifest straight away, just trust that it will happen. Okay. Physically, you're being supported spiritually, okay, in your physical, with any sort of physical challenge. It might be illness, injury, maybe it's trying to lose weight, or trying to change lifestyle, trying to change diet, maybe overcoming substance addictions, because that's a physical chemical dependencies and things like that. Okay, just they're saying that know that you have support, a spiritual support, and it says it's sort of saying try not to over worry, so don't be obsessed with worrying about it, okay, and just allow a miracle to occur. So it's sort of saying just kind of try and go with your flow, and try and obviously add their tap into their heart space. Just go back into self-love, self-care. Okay, if you're having trouble with any physical issue. This one here, it's saying cycles, so it's also kind of alluding to that thing of like, if people are, for instance, going through physical healing, that can be very challenging, and as well as with psychological healing, okay, and also healing from addictions. It's sort of referring to the fact that there are cycles, so there's going to be ups and downs, okay, pertaining to the physical. I think it's also saying that because our physical bodies are generally the vehicle for us to actually activate our divine masculine, it's almost saying that you've just got to be aware that there are times when you're not going to be able to activate, even though you might feel like in your mind that you want to. And when that happens, it's a case of just going back into trust and self-love and self-care, okay? And like I said before too, that thing about integrating masculine and feminine, okay, it's an up and down. Like, it's a bit of a back and forth. Like, one minute you'll feel like, hey, I'm in the feminine, and then you'll be back in the masculine, and then it might be like you feel like they're warring, and then, or sometimes there might be a defense mechanism that comes up within you which sort of gets angry at one of your aspects. Like, you know, I can't be feminine because I've got to do all this stuff and be masculine, right? Or, you know, a guy going, you know, I can't activate my inner feminine, I don't have time for that. Or what the hell's that about? I can't do that. Okay? It's sort of saying just keep going because there are cycles. Okay? But it's sort of saying don't give up. Allow and accept and trust the cyclical nature of psychological integration and transformation, because it takes time. You know, for particularly people that are just starting out on their transformation. Some people might be a bit way through, some people might be halfway, some people might be a long way through, you know, but it still cycles. Yeah, so the ups and downs, it's just sort of saying ride the ups and downs, see? Just ride it. And that's literally moving through air too. So, you know, that's actually quite a feminine thing, image also, because of the airflow. You know, it's just saying, and here Archangel Michael's mentioning here, it's sort of like saying just surrender. It's sort of saying surrender to the flow, surrender to the cyclical nature of transformation. But the main thing is to trust that we'll progress, that you will progress, okay? And particularly because we're talking about the physical, okay? Like I said, if you're dealing with illness, injury, you know, addictions, substance addictions or anything like that, or you know, psychological things like anxiety or you know, yeah, lifestyle changes, anything, okay, or even a change of physical location, like if you're changing where you live, okay, it's just saying trust. And there's a lot of protection, a lot of spiritual protection for everyone as they're going through what they have to go through in physical form, okay, because that's not easy to navigate, is it, as we know. Emotional, okay. Oh my God, can you believe it? Emotions. We have Thor and Diana here. These are actually two warrior figures. Obviously Thor is the Norse, one of the Norse gods, action, okay, and Diana is what she said there, focused intention. Think about what you desire, set your sights high, expect the best possible outcome. So, and Thor is action. So, you know what that's sort of saying is that focused action and intention, focused intent, is really, and that it kind of brings to mind in terms of emotions and feelings. It's really like people, masculine and feminine, to activate and integrate masculine and feminine. There's going to have to be some serious focused intention strategies and skills that people are going to need to start learning and doing. Because here, action, they actually need to put the intent. So you can intend something, think about it, but then you've got to act on it, which is the action. So isn't that just typical, feminine and masculine? Feminine, work out what the intent is, focus on that, do the inner, you know, the what are we saying here? The intuitive and the healing. Think about where you want to put your action and what you need to be developing in yourself. Although focus is also a masculine quality. Focusing, mind, and then the doing with regard to emotions, emotional management, emotional navigation, understanding your emotions, expressing your emotions. Doing something creative could be one of these actions. Okay. You know, doing some writing to get your thoughts out, music, art, dance, movement. And that's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a double action. Because sometimes doing stuff with the body actually releases the trauma or the feeling. But also dancing can be quite a joyous thing, and it can be quite a funny thing. You know, it can be humorous to actually get to put some good people and put on some groovy music and start dancing. But, you know, yeah, and Diana, now she's definitely a warrior type. But see this, it's almost like a crescent moon there. That's also, you know, contemplative. So it's almost kind of saying, take time. If you're having emotional overwhelm, take time out for yourself. And that is a divine feminine thing to do. Okay, it is a wise thing to do, and it is also being present with yourself. If you feel emotional overwhelm, it is really good to actually identify that, be present with it, perhaps just give yourself a bit of time out from everything and everyone. You know, it might be an hour or two, or maybe you need a whole day or 2 days, whatever, to just kind of be really present with yourself. Okay, which is also a little bit like mindfulness, isn't it? But we're not trying to be logical. If you're having emotions, you don't want to be overly logical. You want to just really allow yourself to feel. You know, you might have to have a cry. You might want to just get some paint and just sort of get some paper and just sort of express out using paint. Finger painting is really good for that, or watercolor painting. Okay. And the divine masculine here, that's kind of saying when it comes to emotions, it's saying, active, you could almost say activate. Act on within reason. Of course, if you're really annoyed with someone, you're not going to go and punch them a lot, are you? But if you do feel like that, maybe you actually do need to remove yourself and actually go and roll up a newspaper, put some tape around it, and just go in your room and just bang the daylights out of your bedpost with it. Release and activate your emotions as well. Or be expressive. Okay, express. Action is also about expression, which is another divine masculine aspect. We could have actually put expression up here, couldn't we? We could have put extroversion, expressing, and we could have put here introversion and contemplation to do with emotions. So this is like emotional awareness, and this is like expression of emotions. Now the other thing, isn't that really interesting that this has come up under the masculine, because it's really encouraging even men in general, but women too, that hold their emotions in, to actually try and express them a little bit. Okay. So this is also saying about set your sights high. So it's kind of saying as well that if you have high expectations, or you really want to be feeling a whole lot better than what you are, it's saying you can kind of do that, right? Expect the best possible outcome, provided you take some action to achieve what it is that you really, really want to work towards, with regard to especially your emotional states. Okay, we do as humans actually do have the power to set little goals for ourselves and then to really work towards achieving them, and also do little things where we give ourselves a pat on the back for achieving them. I think that might be what Diana's saying here as well. Okay, if you've had an emotional rough trot recently, perhaps between now and December, it's sort of saying you actually have the ability to change that, to turn it around a bit. Okay, and you know, we could then also go back to this one, Archangel Michael here, and just say, you know, trust. Angels stand close. Right, there's angelic help, there's ascended master help, there is your own particular or ancestral or specific cultural spirit guides, and there is also many beautiful benevolent light beings and different galactic consciousnesses that are assisting us also. Tap into intuition, yeah, which was our other beautiful first card here. I can't get over that. That's amazing. That purple is so intuitive. This is sort of almost what Diana's getting onto here as well. But that is awesome pairing, isn't it? And isn't that interesting? Is it just me, or you know, was Diana and Thor in a movie ever in Marvel? I don't know. Maybe it's kind of saying, people, go watch that movie. I don't know which one it was. If anyone does know the name of that movie, could they please message me down below? So I'm going to go watch it. Not right now, later on. Now, let's look at spiritual. Okay? I think they're in separate movies, weren't they? One's DC, the other one's Marvel. Oh, it doesn't matter. Now, spiritual, masculine and feminine, what's going to be happening? Wow. Okay. We have this. There's a lot of support for the divine masculine in here, isn't there? Which is really nice, because it's so perfectly balanced. I mean, admittedly, we've got the masculine images of the Gods and Titans cards, right? But we've had two feminine, Diana and the Holy Amethyst, and then we've had Archangel Michael, and now we have Mercury, who also has a caduceus here, which is a symbol of healing. And he's saying open communication. That's what's going to be happening. It's saying, suggesting that between the masculine, divine masculine, and divine feminine aspects within oneself, even, there's going to be more open communication between the two. And isn't that just going to be freeing? But we could also interpret that as the divine masculine, because this is a masculine image. We could also interpret it to mean that the divine masculine will be comfortable with open communication, or it's encouraging the divine masculine to openly communicate about those divine, new, spiritual, purposeful things. Okay, because it's not saying for the dysfunctional and distorted masculine to start communicating, although that would probably be good for its own healing, wouldn't it? So it could even be referring to that if it hasn't happened already. But once again, it's encouraging for the divine masculine in men and women. So basically, if you're a woman that's very shy and kept to yourself, and you've sort of been, you know, a bit of a doormat, or you've been, you know, stuck in the house a lot, or, you know, you feel like you've been stuck in these roles that you don't want to be in, there's going to be a time, you know, between now and Christmas when you might start to break out of that a bit. The other thing Mercury says here is get a weight off your chest, speak up with love and be heard. Now that is very healing. And that is all, it's actually almost really supportive for the divine masculine and the divine feminine. Because even if you're operating from a distorted masculine perspective or a distorted feminine perspective, which is not those, but I'm just saying feminine or masculine, distorted perspective, if you're in either one of those predominantly and you feel like you need to do healing or need to speak out, please do find someone, maybe a counsellor or someone that you trust that you can speak to. I will just give a little transpersonal a plug here. Transpersonal psychology approach is really good. I mean, people that are interested in psychology might even want to go study a course on it. It's really awesome. Looks into the symbolic, subconscious, as well as, you know, conscious, changing states of consciousness and all sorts of things. Okay, not necessarily with drugs, just with self-awareness and meditation and, you know, mindfulness, but also dream work and things like that. Hypnos. Now, I hope I've shown these pictures. There we go, it's a bit better in the light. Hypnos is sleep. That is a Greek god of sleep. Now, this is to do pertaining to the spiritual side, but it's sort of saying rest, but it's also saying, alluding to the idea of taking time out for meditation, for deep relaxation. Okay. I did notice, I flicked through this Gods and Titans deck. There isn't a card on meditation, right, but this is the closest one to it, which is sleep, which is literally like, interesting thing is, if you're in a, well, there's a couple of different brainwave states you can be in if you're sleeping, but Delta, for instance, I think it's Delta, which can be like a dreaming state, but you can be in Delta while you're conscious if you're in a deep meditation. So it's actually alluding to meditation, I believe, on this spiritual here. So even if you're, it's sort of saying, well, divine masculine, in some ways the divine masculine needs to have times of quiet in order to perhaps become focused, or to work out what its purpose is, or even to connect with spiritual energies. Okay, and it might need to do some self-reflection and perhaps work on becoming more compassionate. So you know, like Buddhist type meditations is really good for all of this. And this can be talking about, obviously, a man or a woman that kind of really needs to, who wants to focus in on finding out even what their sole purpose is, for a start. Because you can't just be going through the motions day in, day out, not do any self-reflection and expect, you know, all of your spiritual gifts to come into your awareness and expect to evolve in your consciousness. It doesn't happen. You can't do that if you're 24/7 through the motions. You've got to do some deep, contemplative meditation. You've got to fill your mind with perhaps images, concepts, understanding. You've got to read some stuff. You've got to do some research. Put the stuff in there that's going to help you to formulate what it is you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing your masculine and feminine together, or if just even how you're going to actually just tap into and become aware of your opposite aspect, whichever that may be. You know, like I said, if you're a guy that's been, you know, say you're a guy that's been very masculine based, like very action driven, results based, out there doing stuff, protecting people, doing stuff for people all the time, and you haven't been actually doing any introspection for yourself. You know, that's probably what this is saying. It's time for introspection. The same for a woman, if she's been acting on a very masculine mindset, from a very masculine mindset. Time to introspect, ladies and gents. So open communication, let's just read that again. Get a weight off your chest. So this is spiritually, okay? If you feel that spiritually you're really under the pump and you're struggling spiritually to have a belief or a path or something that you want a deep, meaningful purpose, because meaning comes into spiritual. So it's about meaningfulness, meaning in life, okay? If you really feel like you need to talk to someone about, you know, that, do so. And you can also investigate, you know, different systems of or philosophies. Okay. Transpersonal psychology approach is also really good in terms of helping people find meaning. Actually, now just come to mind a little book by Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl, Frankl. Very interesting story about a chap who had to spend time in a concentration camp, and basically it's just fascinating because he was able, even in that situation, to find really deep purpose and meaning. It's just amazing the human condition, how resilient and how amazingly what our capacity is. A lot of us have no idea. I mean, me myself, I feel like I'm only touching the tip of the iceberg. You know, and I've done, well, you know, 6 or 7 years of, you know, personal growth work. It's not that much in the big scheme of things, although I've had my share of injury and illness and all the rest of it. And had, you know, this is the other thing about when we have challenges, it teaches us about ourselves. It also helps us to be more resourceful, doesn't it? Yeah. So that one I think is definitely just the quieten down, and also just that thing about going within. Just kind of take care of your inner world. And this one's almost saying about if you've got inner stuff going on that you need to talk about, please talk about it with someone. And that's really beautiful and healing. He's literally got wings. Hey, you know what? Oh my God. Synchronicity there. Can you see that it's actually kind of got, yeah, that's wing feather type things, right? And Mercury here has got, like, you know, wing stuff coming up here as well. And look, there's wings there. This guy's got wings here. So it's kind of like saying, you know what, you know, you've got wings. Men and women have got wings to fly. Right, we've just got to go in and talk about stuff spiritually. That might just be sharing with each other. And yeah, it will all work out. Now let's look at this spread down here. Okay, so in terms of so this was the mental and the emotional. Okay, so if we're looking at it this way, we had good old Thorsey there, Diana, Ra, and Holy Amethyst. So this is the mental, emotional line, right? So yeah, this one's really about intuition. This is about the us men and women recognizing the power of the divine feminine, really. I mean, the power of divine feminine, but also that the divine feminine needs this power in order to come forth. Okay, so they need each other, right? The emotion here is actually to do with focusing in, becoming aware of your emotions, and just even identifying what you want to shift them to, and then really taking action on that, getting some strategies and skills on board. The thing with emotion, yeah, well, that's basically it. It's the action, okay? Yeah, that's that one. So that's the thought, the thinking, and the feeling. Right. And here, sorry, we'll do it this way. Let's just put this here, and we'll put these like this. So this is the spiritual, and then we have the physical. Okay. It's interesting how that's red and green. It's quite Christmassy, isn't it? The spirit's having a bit of a joke there. Oh, yep, before Christmas it'll happen. Now, these are all men, right? So I'm having a feeling that this is all obviously about divine masculine, and it's also really supportive. Okay, it's about saying that people might just need to take a bit of time out to even, you know, identify what their divine masculine is kind of asking of them, or in what way it's being manifested. And then maybe talking with people about how they're going to bring that about, or about any concerns about that they have about that. Okay, and it might also be about gaining support for people, for themselves, so that if you're, for instance, having trouble manifesting something or getting into enough belief about something in order to do it, you might need to gain support of other people in order to help bring that about and activate your own divine masculine. Okay, now we're talking about men and women. All right. The cycles here, this was the physical one, it's about trusting that even though there's going to be some ups and downs physically, and to do with that mind-body connection, it might be quite challenging at times to kind of navigate it, to understand it, and to master it in some degree. Okay, saying there's a lot of help there, a lot of spiritual help, and that you are safe and angels are staying close. Okay, it's sort of saying allow a flow, allow a miracle to occur. So it's saying ride the cycles and do the self-care with it. Okay, and this is almost self-care, isn't it? Because it's saying get a weight off your chest. So if it's almost, this could pertain to this. So if you're having troubles physically, okay, spiritually you might really need to kind of give yourself a boost and just go, look, I really need to talk about this. I've just got to, you know, it's too hard for me. I can't do it on my own. I need to talk about it. And the funny thing is that that's actually to actually take action on that is a divine masculine thing, but the very thing of actually being in space where being in a space with another person where they can actually be present for you as you vent your concerns and your emotions, being present is more of a feminine, divine feminine mode. So you're almost here, this is why the spiritual is almost like this beautiful combination of taking action, but been doing the action in almost a feminine way. Okay, and of course sleep and meditation pertains to everyone, right? And I mean that's almost a feminine, traditionally divine feminine, isn't it? Because we're talking about going within, which is what sleep does. I mean, you can sleepwalk, but you probably wouldn't be talking and making much sense to people if you were sleepwalking. So it's definitely a very internal mode, this one. Internal, being open and communicating out. Okay. This could also be to do with spiritual communication. So it might be communicating with spirit, which would be really beautiful as well. Okay. And it's almost even alluding to the fact that if you sleep, if you're in a deep meditative state, that's the state to be in if you would like to participate more in communicating with your spirit guides in open communication. Okay, which is awesome. All right, thank you for listening. I hope that's all made sense. yeah, like I said, you might want to come up with your own list or scrap some of them off, or change them, whatever. We've already added a few, haven't we, during our session? Right, so thank you, Spirit, for assisting us with that. And yeah, I feel like it was kind of a bit of a masculine presentation, wasn't it? Because I was kind of out there. But yeah, very logical, ordered, you know, and these things all interact. Obviously, we didn't look at the, for instance, this sort of connection here, did we? But there is a direct connection. Let's quickly do that. There definitely is a direct connection between, you know, the emotional and the spiritual here. Okay. Because in some ways we've got, there's the incubation of the sleep or the meditation, and then there's the communication, which is the outward sharing. This one we have the focus in on what the intention is, and then we have the take action with Thor there for expressing the emotion out. Okay, because there's lots of parallels, and isn't that fascinating? Literally, as I'm saying that, it's like we're going from feminine, divine feminine is to kind of really go within, sort out what it is we either want or we need to express, and then just doing that, which is the masculine, divine masculine being activated, right? So it works out perfectly. And obviously, yeah, we've got here, this is the trust, is talking about the that's like what you're doing internally. It's like you're trusting, okay, and surrendering your concerns internally. But outwardly, there's cycles happening. They can be inward cycles, or they could be outward cycles. So it might be that, you know, say if you're having health issues, that you're dealing with external things, like your physical body is going through things. But this is like a mind, almost a mind-body thing happening here. And of course, with the mental, you know, we have two very divine things here. This is divine alchemy, moving beyond current challenges, and this one's saying, you know, that angels are close. So it's sort of saying, focus on what you desire. It's like, yeah, it's really moving, transforming, transformative into a more powerful way of being. Okay. You know, it's almost like the power here, this power is backing this up, okay, and this is actually requiring that power in order to fully stand in its power. Okay, this the intuition here and the alchemy. But it's probably, you know, the beautiful synergy of this is that they're kind of together. Like if you can imagine those things together, it's really a powerful synergy of you know, the true power of the intuition and the spirit connection. And I think that's more to the point, which we probably did say before, but you know, that's almost quite a spiritual one, isn't it? But it's sort of saying that first of all we have to conceptually have an idea of this in our thinking. We have to put our thoughts on this, that it is good for us to do, to integrate and activate more fully our divine masculine and divine feminine aspects. Okay. All right. So we'll leave it at there. Leave it at that. And yeah, thank you for listening. Welcome to leave any comments below, and see you next time. Bye.